Good morning, everyone. We're going to get the press conference underway, beginning just with a brief welcome to all of you. Welcome to First Church United Church of Christ in downtown Phoenix. Whether you are here in person or you're watching virtually, you are welcome. I'm Reverend Susan Valaket, the pastor of First Church, and I can't imagine a better place for a press conference inside a sanctuary. Isn't that what an asylum seeker, a refugee, an immigrant seeks? A place of safety, a place of welcome, a place of hospitality. We are committed as followers of Christ to love our neighbors and welcome the stranger and foreigner amongst us. Sometimes it means being the voice of those without a voice. We are committed to welcome, advocate, and bear witness to the atrocities of those who travel the long and dangerous journey to arrive at our borders. Today, we'll learn the truth of what happens when they arrive. We are grateful for this collaboration, and we welcome each one of you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Susan. And I also want to thank you for letting us have our event, this press conference here in your church. It is very kind, and we are very, very appreciative. I'd like to ask everyone to please silence their cell phones so that they are not disrupted. Thank you. My name is Esther Duran Lum. I am one of the co-chairs of Uncage and Reunite Families Coalition. The other co-chair is Carolyn O'Connor. Carolyn, would you stand for just a second, please? She's shy. Today we have some excellent speakers that are going to be telling you about the situation with the Yuma Border Patrol that has been going on for some time. Our very first speaker is Chelsea Sasha she's the managing attorney of the adult program for the Border Action Team of Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project. They go with the acronym FIRRP. Chelsea.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having me today, especially to Uncage and Reunite Families Coalition. The confiscation of medical records, medications, other identity documents, and important documents of personal belongings of asylum seekers as they come through the border, but particularly in the Yuma Border Patrol section, is incredibly concerning. As an attorney, when you're working on an asylum case, the evidence that is part of someone's case is crucial to winning their asylum case. And for asylum seekers, to win your asylum case means to win safety, security, and have a chance at continued life. Because if you lose your asylum case, you know all too well, you're risking deportation back to your country and back to danger. So when we talk about the importance of not confiscating belongings, not confiscating evidence, it is imperative that refugees and asylum seekers have access to their documents because their life can actually depend on it, their case can depend on it. That's why it's an incredibly concerning issue for the Florence Project to see and to bear witness. But more than that, we're also hearing disturbing accounts of particular populations, in particular the Sikh population who is coming through the Yuma Border Patrol sector being asked to remove their turbans. This is a violation not only of their religious liberties, but of a number of laws, protocols, and guidelines. And all of these combined are actions that violate the rights and freedoms of asylum seekers. People have the right to seek asylum under the law, both domestic and international. And so when we see these actions taking place, it is a further erosion of asylum seekers' rights. And it also, all of this ties back to the larger issue of Title 42. Title 42 is a policy that has been in place since March of 2020. Under the Title 42 policy, it is this effectively closed access to asylum at the border. You cannot walk up to a port of entry today and seek safety and receive processing. When that occurs, people are not only left in really awful conditions in Mexico, which some of my colleagues here will likely talk about, but more than that, they're forced into making these dangerous journeys, these dangerous choices through the desert, like what you're seeing in Yuma. And so one of the biggest ways in which we can solve this problem, beyond holding our government agents accountable for their actions, is to also end the Title 42 Border Patrol, or excuse me, Title 42 policy, and to have access to asylum at border points of entry again. Because when you do that, there are infrastructures and systems in place that can largely prevent actions like that from occurring, and we can welcome people with safety and with dignity. So on behalf of the Florence Project, we're here today to simply state how against we are against these actions, and we are against the Title 42 border policy that is increasing the number of people that are being forced to seek safety through the desert, and particularly the border patrol sector. We are encouraged by the turnout here in this room today, and we hope that you all will also go forward in your communities talking about these issues and uniting to apply public pressure to end these practices and to end the Title 42 policy. Thank you so much for having me here today, and I'm happy to answer further questions.
Thank you, Chelsea. And if you're wondering why Chelsea is so knowledgeable, I'll tell you just a little bit about her. Chelsea has been with the Florence Project since September 2020 as an Equal Justice Works Fellow. But she originally came to the Florence Project in the summer of 2018 as the FIRRP KBI Binational Programs Legal Intern. Chelsea graduated from UC Hastings College of the Law, where she was the first recipient of the Leo Martinez Award for Distinguished Community Service for her work in establishing an annual detention center advocacy trip. Prior to law school, Chelsea spent 5 years working in various legal settings, focusing on immigration, special education, and landlord-tenant law. In her spare time, Chelsea enjoys spending time with family and friends and reading, enjoying the outdoors, traveling, and eating far too much delicious food. Those are her words. I think she looks great. Chelsea draws inspiration from the countless immigration advocates and human rights activists that have come before her, and she is now honored to call them colleagues. Most of all, Chelsea is inspired by the experiences of her grandmother. Her grandmother is a Holocaust survivor, and her mother-in-law, Amaya, former asylee, as she works to provide similar opportunities for others fleeing persecution. So if you want to contact Chelsea later, I do have a phone number for her. You can get it after the conference. So thank you so much again, Chelsea, for your excellent work. Our next speaker is Natalie Hernandez Barahona. Natalie is with the AZ California Humanitarian Coalition. Natalie Hernandez Barahona is the volunteer coordinator for the Arizona California Humanitarian Coalition, which seeks to provide critical support to migrants during their journey through collaboration with other established humanitarian groups across Arizona and California. Natalie is on the ground in Yuma County, Arizona, doing hands-on work at the forefront, meeting migrants as soon as they arrive in the United States. Natalie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalia Hernandez Barahona. I'm a first generation Chicana in the United States, and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we're standing on, which is Oran land. I will be starting with a poem by Warsaw Shire called Home. No one seeks asylum unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see your whole town running too. Your neighbors running fast as you, fear in their throats when home won't let you stay. No one seeks asylum unless home chases you. No time to do anything but grab your kids, choking back the tears so you can run. Leaving home was not something you ever thought of doing until you saw your neighbor, your brother, your best friend killed, and the next one will be you. Until the knife burns threads into your neck and you had to flee the land of your forefathers, your childhood memories, the future you planned, and everything you know, like the back of your hand. You had to flee your grandmother's song still on your breath, not letting the children see you sob, as each mile behind you makes it clear you won't be going back. No one wants to put their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land behind them. No one wants to burn the palms of their hands in their trains. No one wants to spend days and nights in the stinking belly of a truck, bumping and shuddering into the unknown. No one wants to crawl under fences. No one wants to be beaten. No one wants to be pitied. No one chooses strip searches where your body is left aching. No one chooses prison unless prison is safer than home. And one prison guard in the night is better than a truckload of laughing men. No one could take it. No one could stomach it. No one's skin would be tough enough to endure the go home, you dirty illegals, you rapists, you killers, you criminals. No one could endure the lies. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, their country's worse. Illegals with their hands out, sucking our country dry. They messed up their country, now they want to mess up ours. How do such ugly words, such dirty looks roll off your backs? Maybe because those blows are softer than a limb torn off. Maybe because those words are more tender than 14 men between your legs. Maybe because those insults are easier to swallow than rubble, than bone, than your child's body in pieces. No one would leave home unless home chased them to the shore, shouting, leave, run away now, quicken your legs, leave your clothes behind, crawl through the desert, drown in the ocean, sleep in the filth on the ground, live in hunger, beg. Who abandons their pride unless survival is more important? Asylum seekers want to go home, but home is the mouth of a shark, the barrel of a gun, and the only choice they leave behind is life as a slave or death. Thank you everyone for being here today during such an important event we're all taking part of. I work with an organization called Arizona California Humanitarian Coalition, and we're based out of Yuma County, Arizona. We provide critical support to migrants during their journey. We provide migrants with their most immediate needs, being food, water, baby supplies, hygiene kits, clothing when they first arrive to the United States. We are proud to be part of their journey. We are at the forefront of what's happening at the border and we don't like what we see. We do daily border aid runs. During these runs, we have come across a preventable disaster. Thousands of migrants forced to leave behind their personal belongings by Border Patrol. Daily, we find photos, medications, shoes, backpacks, clothing, religious items, including files and passports that could prove crucial in their processing claims. These practices cause so much sadness and despair for those seeking a better life. I recall the story my father told me when he migrated to the United States. He told me that all of the items he traveled with were also confiscated and thrown away. This was in the 1980s. This has been happening for far too long. I will never forget seeing a wheelchair at the border, wondering how that individual continued with their journey. We believe migrants deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, so we ask for an end to this practice. So let me get back to the question implied in the poem. If nobody seeks asylum unless home is the mouth of a shark, what is driving so many migrants to leave behind their items and subject themselves to the trauma of a dangerous, expensive journey to petition refuge in the United States? We know that the main reason people leave home and seek asylum in another country is when violence against civilians and political instability or climate crisis in their home countries reach unbearable levels. We're not here to be judge and jury for these migrants. We want to create a welcoming experience for these migrants during their journey. Migration has been happening for thousands of years. Migration is natural and migration is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Such true words. Our next speaker is Reverend Ken Heinzelman from Shadow Rock United Church of Christ. Reverend Ken Heinzelman and Shadow Rock UCC have been working in immigration justice ministries since 2014, when they were asked to take someone into sanctuary to prevent their deportation and keep a family united. Since that first act of care and defiance, they have worked with 7 more families for sanctuary. They've hosted hundreds of refugees and now are sponsoring Afghan diplomat families. Their work is based on the simple mission to keep people safe and keep families together. Their hope is comprehensive immigration reform based on compassion, justice, and the truth that migration is a natural human phenomenon. Reverend.
Grace to you, peace to you. I am Reverend Ken Heinzelman. I'm the pastor at Shadow Rock United Church of Christ. I think also for press purposes, Heinzelman, Heintzlman. Our congregation has been in the work of immigration justice since 2014. We have offered sanctuary to families to prevent deportation and to keep people safe and to keep families together. We have offered hospitality to refugees. We have seen children that come out of detention that are absolutely broken, hardly able to eat. I remember Petra Falcone sitting at one of our church tables, spoon feeding a child because we did not know what to do next. But by the next day, he was doing a little dance with the new tennis shoes he had that would light up every time he took a step. It's about the humanity of people and their dignity. We've offered hospitality to refugees, and we continue to walk with our sanctuary families as they navigate our broken immigration system. We currently sponsor Afghan diplomat families that again have been stranded and forgotten by systems and people, bureaucrats that safeguard those systems. Otherwise, these families are struggling. Just this morning, talking with a family in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, 2 of their 4 children are in the hospital, and they're unable to get a diagnosis of the medication because they have no money. So we send them support, and then the system of the bank is holding on to the money for another 5 days before releasing it to them. Again, it's about the humanity of people and our connection to one another. I have to say, we win some and we lose some. A foundational story in the Judeo-Christian tradition is the story of migration. Remember that story? Remember Cecil B. DeMille, and you remember the story of the 10 Commandments, and Charlton Heston heroically led people out of Egypt. But you see the story of migration and people of faith taking their sacred objects with them. Our spiritual ancestors, again, people we claim connection to, fled the violence and bondage of one place to make a home safely and freedom in another place. In their season of migration and wandering, they took with them the sacred object of the Ark of the Covenant. They took with them the baskets and the tapestries woven by their grandparents, the objects that spoke of their ancestry, their connection, and their identity. They created sacred time, sacred space, and sacred objects to sustain them for their difficult journey to the promised land. We forget or deliberately block it out of our minds that the story of our spiritual ancestors is our story. Migration is a natural human phenomenon, and God uses migration to do acts of love and justice in the midst of history. When there is no food, people move to where the food is, and it's an opportunity for us to share. When there is no safety, they move to where they can be safe, and it's an opportunity for us to welcome them and give them a safe place. When there is no opportunity for children, parents move their children where there is opportunity. And in all of the disruption and transition, people need their sources of strength and sustainability. You see, if we want to dehumanize, and apparently we do, if we want to demoralize another human being, and apparently we do, then we steal, we desecrate, and we destroy the things that define their humanity, connect them with their God, and witness to their identity. When these actions of theft, desecration, and destruction happen by immigration government officials, they are not Border Patrol officers. They are state-sponsored thieves and state-sponsored thugs. This is not the work they signed up for, but it is the pit of indignity that our system reduces everyone. As a person of faith, I am concerned about the skewed, wounded, and scarred image of God in every person. This includes the immigration officers, but I am especially concerned about our most vulnerable migrant neighbors. Our press conference is to shine the light and love of God on the Border Patrol's illegal and immoral treatment of refugees. They use their power to threaten, force, dehumanize, and demonize refugees, forcing them to abandon personal items that include important documents that can support asylum claims, such as passports and birth certificates. They use their power to steal and discard religious icons, a cross, a crucifix, a rosary, to discard medications and cell phones. So we call on people of faith and conscience inside and outside our immigration agencies to stop these illegal and immoral actions. They are cruel and serve no safety concern. They are cruel for the sake of cruelty, and their purpose is to hinder any legal pathway for legal immigration status. Our system is not about welcoming people, it's about keeping people out. Thank you. Thank you to the activists who care and work to shine God's light of love on this issue. And thank you to the media for giving voice to this truth.
Thank you so much, Reverend Heinzelman, for those wise words. We all know how true they are. Our next speaker is Pedro de Velasco, Director of Education and Advocacy from the Kano Border Initiative, acronym KBI. Pedro de Velasco is an attorney from Mexico with more than 12 years of experience working with migrant communities on both sides of the border between Mexico and the United States. He currently serves as KBI's Director of Education and Advocacy. He's responsible for building and strengthening collaborative networks that help reverse the anti-immigrant rhetoric and influence the transformation of immigration policies towards a just and humane system. Pedro?
Thank you. I'm honored and humbled to follow these great speakers, and I'm also thankful for the invitation to be with you to speak today. I'm sure that every single one of us has probably at one point decided to travel with just a carry-on to save some dollars and decided not to document our bag. And we're figuring out when we're preparing our suitcase, what items to bring, what items, to let out. And it's probably, a headache to decide what to bring in that small suitcase. I want us to think that it's not for a short travel, but it's a journey that we are taking, probably not to ever return. And that instead of a carry-on, it's a backpack about this size. And that you have to carry all that is important for you in a backpack about this size. And not only that, but that you have to carry it for at least 25, 30, or 50 miles across the desert. I can assure you that you are not going to bring anything that is not of value, anything that is not important to you. I want us to close our eyes and think for a second, what would you put in that backpack? What important items would you carry with yourself to this journey, to a foraging country, to an unknown country, probably never to return? You're probably thinking about pictures of your children, of your loved one. You're probably thinking about letters from your family, from your relatives, encouraging words. Probably thinking about prayers, the Bible, a rosary, a crucifix. You're also probably thinking about a gift to the person who's visiting you, because it's customary in Mexico and Latin America not to arrive empty-handed. You're also probably thinking about basic needs, your passport, your birth certificate, proof of your case. So that's what's usually found in these backpacks. And to give you an example, last weekend, ICE deported a group of 12 migrants to Nogales after being detained. Every person reported that upon their encounter with Border Patrol, agents took away all their belongings and said they would return them upon arriving to Tucson, which never happened. When they arrived in Nogales, their belongings still had not been returned. Items confiscated included money. One individual lost $200, wallets, phones, and jewelry with sentimental value. One person from the group shared that they witnessed a Border Patrol agent take 3,000 pesos from another migrant and rip it up in his face, saying, "This is trash. This is of no value to you here," before throwing the ripped bills in the trash can. Border Patrol took Miguel's clothes, underwear, Mexican ID, phone, Bible, and rosary. His phone contained all his family members' phone numbers, as well as family photos. Upon deportation, he wasn't able to contact his family until he borrowed someone else's phone to search for them on Facebook. Though he was eventually able to make contact, he will never get his family photos back. he commented to Kino Border Initiative staff that although a rosary may not be of much value to some people, his faith sustained him during this journey. Border Patrol confiscated Jose's phone when they detained him and did not return it when they reported him to Nogales, Mexico. Since he did not have any family phone number memorized, when he arrived in Nogales, Jose had no way of contacting his family to let them know he was okay, or to ask them to send money so that he can return home. And although we spent about an hour helping him look for his family on Facebook, we couldn't find anyone. So Jose is still stranded in Nogales without the ability to contact family members. These are just some recent stories I'm talking about in the last week of people we encounter in Nogales after being expelled from the United States by immigration authorities. And the way that they are disregarding these personal belongings, these important items, these religious items that are important to them, and also, as Chelsea was pointing out, evidence to sustain their asylum claims. Documents that could help them prove their identity and are very difficult to, get again if you're traveling in a foreign country. Medicine, which not only your health, but your life depend on it. So these are the type of items that are carried out by migrants that are crossing through the border, crossing through the desert in these difficult journeys. And these are the items that are being thrown away with total disregard by immigration officers, with total disregard for human lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It's because of the things that Pedro just mentioned that we felt that we had to hold this press conference in order to make the public aware of what has been occurring for a very long time. And even though recently some of our Congress people called for it to stop, we know for a fact that it has not stopped, and it's not likely to stop because so many of those agencies believe that they are above the law. So our next speaker, I will introduce in a minute, but I want to ask you to please do not leave, stay and watch a PowerPoint video that we're going to watch for you, to show you, in order to show you that we have proof of what has been going on. And this video will later be shared on social media. We did not put it ahead of time because we have many groups who are anti-immigrant, and we really did not want to risk the safety of our attendees here. So please stay afterwards, and also our speakers will all be available for you to ask questions, as well as anyone wearing these t-shirts. These t-shirts signify the group that's putting this together, which is Uncage and Reunite Families Coalition, which was established in summer of 2018 when we heard of the horrific act of separating children from their families, and we have been fighting to reunite them since then. But we have also been advocating for the humane treatment of the asylum seekers, which they deserve and which is in the Constitution of the United States, that they have the right to do this. So our next speaker and our final speaker is Eddie Chavez Calderon. He's a campaign organizer from Arizona Jews for Justice. Since he was a teenager, Eddie Chavez Calderon has been deeply involved in social justice work, from the trenches to the coasts and everywhere in between. Eddie fights for a progressive movement that works toward a more inclusive, diverse America. Despite having many obstacles in his way, nothing has deterred Eddie from continuing to fight for the migrant community. As a DACA recipient and someone who has immersed with the Jewish tradition Eddie finds his passion for justice through his latent Jewish values of continuous education and repairing the world, as well as his personal struggles with systemic oppression. Eddie?
Hello, my people, mi gente. So happy to be here with all of you. I am so honored to be here with so many heroes, so many personal heroes of mine. The Pats of the world, the Kens of the world, the Rev Susans of the world, the stars are my great wonderful friend Tim here, my great friend Mary Jo, that if you have not received an email from Mary Jo asking you for help, you are not in the migrant movement. You are not in the migrant movement. Mary Jo is a rock star, let me tell you. My friends, I'm invigorated and full of love and full of also hate and full of resentment, and I'm holding everything in as a Jewish faith. We're going into Tishbot, and we're really sitting with that mourning. We're really sitting with that mourning of acknowledging what's going on, acknowledging the pain, the suffering that's still happening today. I look and see the eyes of so many heroes in this group. So many people that I know personally have been with me, helping thousands of families. Years of advocating in front of ICE with my great friend Ken. Standing in blistering heat with our great friends from Uncage and Reunite, ensuring that ICE no longer dropped people off on the streets. Because my friends, that was happening. We were scurrying to help families left and right. We had no idea what we were doing, but we were ensuring that families were safe. I sit back and I see every single one of you who, from the years past, we're so organized now. We have a system. Mary Jo makes one email and we're all organized. We understand that collectively we've been able to help folks. But the thing is that the main issue has not changed, my friends. ICE and Border Patrol continue their atrocities. And we know that we've lived without the system of ICE. We've lived without them. And we know that we have a moral obligation to call out injustice when we see it coming from Border Patrol. We have to. It is a moral obligation to call it out, my friends. When I was 5 years old, I was in a detention center with my mom. We crossed the border for days and days and days. And I remember my mom, she hid every single vital piece of information on little sheets of paper. Phone numbers, addresses, and pictures. I remember the pain that I saw in my mother's eyes when the Border Patrol agent asked my mom if I was actually her child. Now my mom painfully says, could you imagine the guts of this person? She said, I should have showed him my C-section scar. Could you believe that? I think back, what would happen if my mother would have lost all of our information? My friends, would I be standing here right here with each and every one of you? Would I have been able to collectively help thousands of asylum seekers, each and every one of you here? Where would I be? The dehumanization of throwing away people's things is unacceptable. It's immoral. It takes away the dignity of people. And it can be deadly. And one of those times that we were supporting asylum seekers, I remember coming into a church, seeing hundreds of people coming in. Immediately, we mobilized, we started serving water, we started serving food, and I set up a medical station, and as I'm setting up a medical station, a man runs up to me. He's yelling at me, and I don't understand it, and my Spanish is fluent, and I'm saying, I don't understand this man, but he's yelling at me, and and he hands me something, and in the moment I have no idea what's going on. My anxiety is through the roof, my heart is racing as we're getting hundreds of people at once. Volunteers are running around left and right, soup is getting served. I had no time to realize what I was holding. As soon as my friends came over and asked the man to leave, I looked back and I looked down, and I took time to feel within my side as I was holding a little limp body of a little girl. I was holding his daughter, who was unconscious. The smell coming from this little girl was a smell that I would never forget because it shouldn't be human. The smell was the smell of decay. I could see the pain in his face, the pain in his body. I may not have understood him, but I understood his pain, his anxiety, because what was the love of his life was in my hands, and he was asking for me for help. My great Jewish community brought in great doctors, that we were able to help a little girl. My friends, do you know what happened to her? She had an infection, a urinary tract infection, so bad because her kidney medication had been thrown away by border patrol. This little girl almost died because of the actions of a militant unit that takes away morality and tries to equate it with legality. And my friends, we are far too advanced in where we are right now to continue to hold the fact and to continue to allow people to hold it as fact that morality equates to legality. That is not true. Not only must we do better, but we must hold systems in place accountable. Just like my great speakers said before, migration is a human right. I think back to the beautiful butterflies of my Michoacán, Mexico, where I was born. I think back to how beautiful their migration all the way to Canada and back. Think how gorgeous is that? Imagine if families were able to safely seek refuge. Imagine if families were able to establish their own little worlds. We think back to ourselves in my own Jewish faith of repairing the world, of the tikkun olam, that we're seeking to repair those vessels. And by me saying that, you might think, Eddie, how are we going to repair the world? There's so many things going on. We have Ukraine, we have tensions in Taiwan, everything's happening at once. Title 42 is still happening. What are we doing? How are we repairing everything? But we need to take a step back. Think about the individual worlds that we're able to help. When we bring back dignity to families, when we advocate for families, when we reunite families, then from there, we start seeing that not only are we repairing worlds, we're reconstructing galaxies, amigos. We're reforming what was broken and unifying it with a bonding of love. If we truly do have the commandment to love the stranger, hold the love rather than tolerance. I challenge each and every one of you to shift away from tolerance and move into love. Because then from there, we start advocating, we start moving, we start protecting, we start creating change that inspires each and every one of us to be a light where there seems to be darkness. I wouldn't be standing here right now if it wasn't for volunteers like them. I wouldn't be sitting in a space of comfort and privilege if it wasn't for volunteers like y'all. I'm blessed to continue the movement with each and every one of you. And I encourage all of you to ignite that fire within people, to continue the advocacy and hold these systems accountable. Because this will not continue to happen on our watch. We must do better. Gracias, amigos.
Thank you so much, Eddie. You can see the words of these speakers and why they touched our hearts and encourage us to continue to advocate since 2018. And we will not stop. We will not stop until the cruelty stops. So I invite you now to watch our PowerPoint video, which shows you the proof of what we've been saying. And don't forget what I mentioned before. You will hear them deny this act, these acts. You will hear them say, oh, well, we're not doing that anymore because we were ordered to stop. Don't believe them for a minute, because we already know that they told them more than a week ago to stop, and we know for a fact they are still doing it. So please keep that in mind. And by the way, the video we're about to show you will be available through either a link for you to show your organizations, and also it will be on YouTube and on our social media, Facebook and the website of Uncage and Reunite Families Coalition. Thank you so much. The video.
Into the United States, their first encounter is with U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. This encounter can result in deportation or, more rarely, in the ability to enter the U.S. and make a case for asylum. In the Yuma Border Center, rather than humanity, refugees are met with cruelty. After traveling thousands of miles in conditions we can't even imagine to get to safety, Yuma Border Patrol is violating law and policy by forcing refugees to give up their belongings. Sometimes the items are confiscated, and sometimes the refugee is forced to simply leave them at the border to become trash. Whether the refugee is then deported or makes their way to a sponsor in the U.S., they often no longer have their cell phones, medications, and identification. This makes them an easy target for extortion, violence, and human trafficking. Should the refugee intend to seek asylum, they no longer have the documentation that will be needed to prove their case. This presentation is provided by the Uncaged and Reunite Families Coalition, the group of community activists, religious leaders, and others advocating for justice and working for the humane and legal treatment of children and families at the U.S. border since 2018. This quote from Pedro is the testimony of a migrant from southern Mexico traveling with his wife, fleeing government corruption and hoping to reunite with their U.S. citizen children. A life cannot be reduced to a tiny plastic bag. None of the items confiscated in trash pose any threat to the Border Patrol agents, yet the lack of the items can pose a significant hardship and danger to the refugee. Judges demand documentation to verify an asylum claim. Police reports, photos, identification, and even medical records can be necessary items. Religious articles are often the only source of solace for an immigrant in a foreign land. For what purpose are they not allowed? Medical records are necessary not only for an individual's health, but often to establish an asylum claim. The lack of clothing, shoes, and hygiene items presents an economic burden to the support community. Volunteers report heartbreaking stories of loss. These actions are not only morally reprehensible, they are illegal. Border Patrol should safeguard identification documents, not trash them. That in itself is a crime. How does a 6-year-old's back x-ray harm an officer? What could possibly be the reason to confiscate or trash medical records? Arizona law is being violated. After years In 2015, national standards for Border Patrol were created. Long-established laws are also being violated. International law is intended to lay the groundwork for humane and humanitarian treatment of migrants. This Instagram post was posted on Earth Day this past April. It is particularly underhanded in that the very victims of their treatment are blamed by Border Patrol for creating a trash pile. Like most bullies, the Border Patrol blames its misdeeds on others. In June of this year, Uncaged and Reunite Families Coalition submitted a list of complaints and recommendations to Border Patrol and other appointed and elected officials. The Yuma Border Patrol agents need to follow existing policy, and management needs to ensure that they do so. We must not let Border Patrol get away with this mistreatment, and we must hold our governmental agencies accountable. If you want to make a difference, please call and write to your senators and to Border Patrol. Make them aware of the problem and insist that they take action immediately to remedy it. These are some of the relinquished items discovered by volunteers at our southern border. This behavior attacks the most vulnerable: children, those fleeing violence, and those targeted by gangs. Like the janitor, it is often the everyday person, not those in high places, who carry on the American ideals of liberty and justice for all.
Or as upset as we are, I urge you, please contact your senators and legislators. I have contact information here. As one of our members said, they were told in 2015 to stop doing this. 2015 to stop doing this, and they're still doing it. We have written letters, we have contacted legislators, and they are still doing it. So we need to stop it. It's like one of our members said, the only way you're going to get them to stop is to humiliate them. So I'm urging you to contact them and oh, I thought my voice was loud enough. I have to start a little. I urge you to contact your senators and your legislators. I have the information here, and on the back, we wrote a little script for you, or you can write your own script. So I'm going to pass these out now. Please, we've got to get this word out. We've got to let people know what's happening. This presentation will also be done in Spanish. Esther and I, or any of our members, would welcome visits to your organization, or you're welcome to show the video, or but we need to let them know. We need to let people know what's going on. When you want to strip people of your humanity, you take away your possession. You have to stop them. So I'm going to pass these out.
Thank you so much. Don't leave without taking one of those, and please, please do what Carolyn just asked. Thank you again for coming, and thank you again so much to Pastor Susan for providing this venue for us to spread the word.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining.